It's time for Global Insight, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. US President Joe Biden on Monday held a second summit of his Asia trip with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, following his meeting over the weekend with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. Biden and Kishida agreed to strengthen deterrence and work closely together to counter China's growing influence in Asia, before launching the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which is America's plan for regional economic cooperation between 13 inaugural countries, including South Korea. So today we wrap up President Biden's back-to-back summits in his first Asia tour with Kim Young-jun, professor at Korea National Defense University, and Jae-woo, Professor of Chinese Studies at Kyung Hee University in Seoul. Very warm welcome to you both. And well, there's a lot of ground to cover today, so we're going to start with you, Professor Kim. Now, Biden and Kishida, they pledged to strengthen deterrence against regional threats. And what's interesting is that they also discussed Japan joining the UN Security Council as a permanent member. So how significant are these steps in pushing back against China? And also the P5 members, they are all nuclear weapon states, though. Is this indicating something?
Yeah, for the long time, Japan have tried to be a member of the United Nations Security Council, and politically and symbolically, yeah, the Biden message was a very strong signal. But I don't think that it will be actually happen because of China and Russia. Foreign United Security Council member never agree with Japan as a permanent member. But anyway, that message is very that important. And although it is just rhetoric and not happening in real world, but a very strong signal to the world.
And Professor CHOO, I wonder what you make of this. President Biden obviously reportedly showing support for Japan joining the UNSC as a permanent member. What kind of purpose would this serve? I mean, why was this suggested? And also, do you think there will be a strong pushback from Beijing and Moscow?
Yes, I think it came out of such a background as in the United States and other countries are leading some of the, reform efforts as indicated by Mr. Biden and Mr. Kishida during their summit meeting, especially coming from Mr. Kishida saying that, the ongoing reform efforts has been stalled over the years, and now it's time to take some initiatives and Japan is obviously leading the efforts here. So, but we got to be careful here. Well, what this idea could transpire into, especially it could also be meaning that India and Germany, for instance, wouldn't be standing by. They have been longing for the seats in the permanent as a permanent member in the council, and the repercussion that it could have on these two states could also be really meaningful to the ongoing reform efforts at the United Nations. So we would have to wait and see until what these two countries will be, how they'll be responding to the Mr. Kishida's suggestions here.
Well, Professor Kim, the Biden-Kishida joint statement, it was openly critical of China, while the one between Yoon and Biden didn't directly mention Beijing. So what kind of different security partnerships do you think Washington is really seeking with its two Northeast Asian allies?
Yeah, fundamental message is the same, but anyway, simply the U.S. and Korea consider Korea's position in relation with China, but the U.S. and Japan and South Korea, the message is we are one team against the revisionist country like China and Russia. So especially against China, for the U.S. is now a time to be all together in the Northeast Asian region.
And Professor Kim, do you think South Korea would involve itself more in Quad activities and initiatives under the Yoon administration?
Of course, the Yoon administration really want to join the Quad, but the U.S. and Japan have not considered South Korea as a member of the current Quad seriously, and Japan openly opposes. But nonetheless, not surprisingly, if there is a chance, the Yoon administration will try to join the Quad, not only Quad, but as well as the Five Eyes country or Korean version of AUKUS as well.
Well, yes, they'll definitely have to revise the name if they do, if the membership becomes more plausible. But Professor Chu, now the centerpiece of the Biden-Kishida summit was supposed to be the launch of the very long-awaited Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. And actually, much of the language in the joint declaration, it was still very vague, and it continued to lack a lot of teeth when it came to what kind of incentives that are going to be available for participating nations. And they were, of course, very skeptical because previous talks on IPF, they didn't seem to guarantee any kind of market access or tariff reduction. So, well, do you think that this framework, it's practically failed before it's taken off? Do you think it's going to gain any momentum?
Yes, the possibility is half and half, as there was a precedent back in the 2010s. If you recollect a little bit, there was a case in Trans-Pacific Partnership, as in TPP, that was launched in 2005, and the negotiation lasted for about a decade. And fortunately, the member states, supposedly the member states, couldn't come up with a conclusion or any substantial conclusion as to the ratification or the agreement on TPP. Unfortunately, there was that case, and another reason could be the United States didn't enjoy too much success with multilateral trade agreements at regional level in the past, except for NAFTA, North America free trade agreements. So if we refer to these two cases, then unfortunately, the prospect of IPEF could be a long and winding road, and I don't think we can safely bet our money on the success of the IPEF at this moment. But hopefully, the United States is keen on this particular issue, so with other member states, including India and Japan. So we should be encouraging and supporting the initiative at this moment.
Of course, and the president's very supportive of this initiative. And what do you think Seoul has to potentially benefit from by joining this initiative?
Probably free trade and probably the construct of the global supply chain, because if we look at the global supply chain, Korea is placed at a very critical position here, because we do have advantage at semiconductor and second batteries and small nuclear plants. So on these particular products, we are a critical supplier to the global market and industry. So here, if we joined, I think we would be in a really safe bet in terms of avoiding sanctions that the United States might impose if we headed into the wrong direction. It's in our relationship with China, and also we could be protected from the retaliations or punitive measures coming from other states. So I think we've been a safe net here, and I think South Korea should be really supportive of the idea at this critical juncture.
Professor Chu, well, China showed strong opposition towards its neighbours moving closer to the US, particularly when it came to launching this economic initiative for the region that could, basically Beijing thinks that it's going to mirror Beijing's own regional comprehensive economic partnership. However, its rhetoric wasn't as aggressive towards Seoul as it was comparatively towards Tokyo or Washington. Do you think then that this signifies how South Korea has gained more diplomatic leverage? Where do you think Yoon stands right now on South Korea-China ties?
Yes, I think China is taking a wait-and-see position right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have increased our leverage over China, because obviously the ball is now in the United States court as we decide to join the IPEF. China doesn't see that, South Korea's joining of IPEF is really challenging to China's interest, whereas it would be the United States rather, because the United States is taking the initiative and we're only part of it. And the United States is going to make the decisions on what final products of semiconductors could be supplied to China, for instance. And we're not in a position to make that decision. So now that's why I'm saying, the ball is now in China's court, the United States court, I'm sorry. So the China, if it is going to make any response, then the response should be targeted at the United States instead of South Korea.
And now wrapping up this summit coverage, Professor Kim, now, despite concerns that North Korea may launch a provocation before or during President Biden's trip to Seoul and Tokyo, it seems to refrain from doing so. Then do you think Pyongyang will launch a missile test or another strong form of response to Biden's back-to-back summits?
Absolutely. There will be another nuclear weapon test or ICBM test as well. And now there was a significant funeral of an old general who was a teacher of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So there was no reason for North Korea to hurry up a nuclear weapon test during a Biden visit in South Korea. It seems that North Korea policy toward South Korea and the U.S. for the next 5 years already has been decided. Never talks for denuclearization with the U.S., never relation with the Yoon administration, and closely partnership with China and Russia, because Kim Jong-un already knows China and Russia will never join the U.S.-led UN sanction. The U.S.-China and U.S.-Russia tension will be long-term. So in this context, North Korea will focus more nuclear and missile development and give up any hope and talks with the U.S. and South Korea. So only factor to change the situation is maybe re-election of the former President Trump in 2024. Otherwise, that situation will be tension go ahead.
Professor Kim, well, what do you think should be Yoon's approach to engaging with North Korea? Because that's been a question mark for many, because it seems that while traditionally his party takes a more hawkish stance towards North Korea, the spiraling COVID-19 situation has proven quite otherwise. Yoon is very willing to offer humanitarian hand assistance to the North. So what do you think his approach towards North Korea should be?
There will be a very low chance for North Korea to accept any kind of vaccination or humanitarian assistance from the Yoon administration, because they fundamentally don't believe the conservative government of South Korea. And this Yoon administration already have a key foreign policy team of the Lee Myung-bak government. So there is a very low chance for North Korea to accept any kind of effort of talks from the Yoon administration.
And Professor Kim, my final question to you. So the South Korea-US alliance, it's been ironclad over the last decades, and it's been very focused on security. But do you think with this summit that's started to show strong winds of change to a more value-based alliance? How do you see it moving forward?
Yeah, this is a very historical moment, I think, it's in the modern Korean history. Over the 70 years, South Korea and U.S. Security relation is more like based on the Korean War situation against the North Korean invasion. But now it's a new chapter for the comprehensive strategic partnership between the U.S. and South Korea, because of not just including military alliance, but also economic and nuclear power plant, or even technological and climate change partnership, to maintaining global leadership with the U.S. In the world. So this is a very important historical moment from the U.S. ROC Presidential Summit. In this moment, this is a continuous effort from the 2021 in the U.S.
Well, that nicely wraps up our coverage of the back-to-back summits Mr. Biden had with his key Asian allies, South Korea and Japan, really evolving into various areas of partnership in non-traditional areas of security as well. Well, that was Kim Young-jun, professor at Korea National Defense University, and Jae-woo, professor of Chinese Studies at Kyung Hee University in Seoul. Thank you both so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.